Welcome back to part two of the series Rebuilding Trust. Can a broken relationship be saved? If you haven't seen episode one, I encourage you to pause this video and watch the first one. It gives you information on how this couple got here and provides valuable information for everything we'll be talking about today. After discovering the emotional portrayal, my friend spent weeks, from her emotions going from anger to sadness to confusion. They all felt like waves crashing over her. It's like she was caught in a storm that she couldn't control, and she wasn't sure if the storm was going to break her or build her up. She kept going in circles in her own head. Part of her wanted to scream, another part of her wanted to run and never look back. And yet, despite all the chaos, there was one thought that kept surfacing. If she didn't address this head on, she'll never know if they can move forward. But then the reality set in. It wasn't just about healing for the sake of healing. It was about figuring out if the foundation of their relationship could even hold up after this. Could trust be rebuilt? Could they come out on the other side stronger, or would they crumble under the weight of betrayal? Before having the conversation, she knew that she had to prepare herself emotionally. She had to sit with her feelings, really sit with them, and get clear on what she needed from this discussion. Not just what she wanted to hear, but what she truly needed to feel in order to start the healing process. What was she hoping for in this conversation? And could she truly handle the truth, no matter how hard it was to hear? So here's the first thing she learned. You can't go into this conversation expecting the other person to fix everything. You can't expect them to just say the right thing and make everything better. It's about asking the tough questions, being ready for the answers, no matter how painful, and then deciding what you're willing to do next. This conversation could change the course of everything, and she needed to be ready for it. So I'm sharing this with you. So if some of you are experiencing this, you'll know what she did. That's when my friend realized there was one question she had to ask, a question so pivotal it would make or break their ability to move forward. And I'll share that question with you in just a moment. But first, let me tell you how she prepared herself for the conversation. This wasn't something she could just walk into unprepared and expect it to go well. Okay? Uh, my friend was smart enough, I would say, to know this couldn't happen in the heat of an argument or when emotions were running high. So timing and setting were everything. She had to create an environment where they could truly listen to each other. If this was going to work, it had to be a space where they both could speak honestly and hear each other's hearts. So she chose a quiet evening after her children were asleep when they could sit down with no distractions. She didn't want this conversation to happen over text or in a public place where they couldn't be completely honest with each other. She knew this needed to be a private space, one where they could both speak freely and openly without fear of judgment or even interruptions. She also realized she had to approach this conversation with a sense of calm. Even though her heart was racing, she couldn't let anger lead the conversation because she knew if it did, she might end up saying things she would regret. She had to be intentional. She had to find a way to express her pain, but in a way that left room for healing. So my friend started by expressing her intentions. She said to her husband, I want to talk about what's happened, but not just to rehash the pain. So this was key, setting the tone for honesty without blame. She wasn't looking for a fight, even though everything in her wanted to argue. She needed to ask the questions that mattered and needed to hear the answers honestly, even if it meant confronting truths that she wasn't ready to face. And then she asked the question, a question she had rehearsed in her mind a million times, but still felt, kind of terrified to say it out loud. It was a question that would reveal everything, whether trust could be rebuilt or if this was truly the end. She had to ask it. She had to simply know. So here's the question she asked. Do you want to rebuild this relationship? And are you willing to put in the work to regain my trust? Now, that question sounds simple, right? But it's not. That question holds so much weight. It's not just about wanting to stay together, it's about the willingness to do the hard, uncomfortable work of rebuilding. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it takes time to heal. You can't rush it. You can't pretend it didn't happen. You can't just say sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. So when she asked it, there was a long silence. And in that silence, her heart was pounding. She said she could hear her own breath in the quiet room. Would he say yes? Would he say no? And if he said yes, could she even believe it? Would it be enough to heal the wounds? Would it be a point where she would be able to trust him again? The answer she got, it wasn't what she expected. And what happened next completely shifted the direction of their relationship. My friend wasn't prepared for it. And honestly, it left her in a state of disbelief. But what she did next, that's the real turning point. It changed everything. So I'll dive into that in the final video because I don't want to make these videos too long. If you're preparing to have this conversation in your own life, here's what I need for you to know. Be ready for any answer. The truth might hurt, but it's better than living in uncertainty. You might not get the answer you hoped for, but it's still the truth, and the truth is always where you need to start. Don't rush the other person's response, and silence can be uncomfortable, but it's often in that silence where real thoughts and feelings come to surface. And sometimes it takes a little longer to process something this big. Be patient and give your spouse space to be real with you. Have a plan for what you'll do next, depending on their answer. If they say they're ready to work on it, great. But make sure you're prepared for the work that will follow. If they say no, that's a harsh reality you will have to face. But it's better to know than to stay in limbo. So this conversation isn't about controlling the outcome. It's about creating space for honesty, no matter how messy it might be. And trust me, it's going to be messy, but that's okay. Healing doesn't happen in perfect conditions. It happens in the raw, the vulnerable, and the realist conditions. And let me tell you, Even when you think you are prepared for every possibility, the reality can still knock you off your feet. That's exactly what happened to my friend. And I'll share all of the details, I promise, in the next video. The answer she received, what she did with it next, changed everything. And you'll find out how it all played out soon. So, this is just the beginning of a very challenging yet necessary process. If you've been in this position or if you're gearing up for this type of conversation, hit that subscribe button so that you can get some tips on how to handle, I guess, this type of situation, unfortunately. So, I want to thank you for watching. And as always, I want you to take care of yourselves and your hearts. And I'll see you in the next video.